In this video, you learn a beautiful classical piece for fingerstyle guitar called Bourree in E Minor by Johan Sebastian Bach. Now, this is a very popular piece to play on guitar, and it was actually the song that inspired Paul McCartney to write Blackbird. Hi, this is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net, and in this lesson, I'm going to break down Bourree in E Minor into tiny little pieces for you to digest. Always the best way to approach any piece, but particularly this one, because as you probably saw there as I was playing in the introduction, there's a lot of movement going on in your fretting hand. So it's of the utmost importance that we approach this in a very efficient manner for a very, resulting in a very fluent sound. Bourree in E minor is made up of two sections. We could call them A and B, if you like, A section, B section. The A section is in the key of E minor, and the B section is in the key of G major, with mini modulations happening throughout, which I'll address as we go through the piece today. So let's get into it. Okay, so the first section of Bourree in E minor. Let's just break this down and see what's going on. First off, what I'd say about this piece is that there is basically no chords in this piece. They're all being implied. What you've got, which is typical of the Baroque era period of classical music, which is where this piece comes from, is you've got bass and melody working together, okay, in a counterpoint sort of fashion. So basically, if we look in the A section here and we look at the melody, just a little excerpt here just to show you what I mean, you've got this melody that goes, okay, so you've got that happening, but at the same time you've got a bass line that is doing something like this. Okay, so you basically got a bass line that's playing more or less on the beat of the bar, and both those parts come together. Etc. So you can see how basically the two components to this piece, okay, and it happens throughout the whole piece, and chords are implied as a result rather than actually being played. Let's have a look. I'm going to move through this pretty quickly, or else we'll be here a long time. But remember, you can always just pause and scroll back and forth with the video to check out things in a little bit more detail, or watch things as much as you need to, okay? But it's all about the fingering. Now, I'm not going to say that there's one way to fret this piece. There's not. You could watch several people play this piece and see differences with the fingering. Now, that doesn't mean that that any way is a good way to fret this out. So I'm going to show you the best way I think there is to play this, and if there's any little variations that can work, well, I'll let you know. So I start with my second finger on the 3rd fret here. This is the very beginning of the piece, the A section, okay, and then I use my 3rd finger on top so I can keep the 2nd finger on the bottom string, which just is more efficient to me to do that, and then I bring that 3rd finger back up, so I'm only using 2 fingers there. And then here, I keep that 3rd finger on again as I move it down to the 2nd fret, and then I use my 1st and 4th fingers. And then open strings, I use my 2nd finger here on this F sharp at the end of the 1st bar, because then my 3rd finger's free to play the G and then the open B, and then these 2 fingers are free to play the 2nd fretted notes. That's the most efficient way I can see doing that. Okay, right there. And then I use my 2nd and pinky, and then that leaves my 1st finger free. If I for example was using like my 1st and 3rd, then I got to sort of break that and bring this around. I got to change position, whereas I can just stay in position here. So I want to try and sort of stay in position, even though I'm moving a lot throughout the piece, different positions on the guitar. I want to stay in any one position as long as possible, basically. Okay, so that's not always going to be for too long in this piece, but all the same, that's the goal. So we're here, and then that was the part there, and then my second finger just comes up, first finger, first and pinky on this power chord here, and then I use my second finger here so that my third is ready to go, and then my second is there again to play that note on its own this time, and then okay, so let me just play from the third bar here. And then I keep my second finger there, then my first, and here I'm going to use my third. Okay, so at the start of the third bar, we've got our third finger, on the G here, and then I'm using my second finger here to play the second fretted note. Okay, so if I use my third finger here, my second is there ready to go, and then my first and fourth, then my second finger again on the second fret, that A note, my third finger, my pinky, and then I'm going to use my third finger here, which might not seem like a logical choice, except so you're thinking ahead. Like when you fret things out, you've got to not just think of where you are right there at that moment in the music, but what is coming up next will often influence the way you fret what you are doing currently. So I'm going to play this with my third finger, so my second is ready to go, and I'm back at the start again. So this is, this first sort of 8 bars of the first section of the tune repeats. Okay, so the first section here, the A section, is made up of 2 4-bar sections, basically, little subsections if you like. So at this point, when I'm back here with my second finger, I'm on the second fret, I'm back at the start, and I go through the same thing again. It's here that it changes to sort of wrap it up and resolve it to the G chord, okay, setting you up for the second section. So here, when we get to this point, this is where it changes, and rather than break that note to then go play that next little part, which you might typically play like that, I keep that second finger on the third fret so that note continues to ring out as I play the next part. So that's, where I'm looking for, I guess there's 2 things to keep in mind here: efficiency and notes ringing through. So that's what you want to have to influence your fingering. And as far as the efficiency is concerned, think about not just where you're at and where you've come from, but where you're going to will often dictate, as I was saying before, how you do it in the moment. So there, I keep my second finger down, and my first and third fingers play the third and second fretted notes. And then I just use second and third fingers there. And then we've actually got a little chord there, so there's a chord in the piece, but there's not too many of them. Okay, so there's the A section. Notice how my fingers are moving pretty efficient. Lots of movement, but as efficient as I can. Here is where it changes. Okay. So watch that as much as you need to. The efficiency, I'm going to say it a lot probably throughout this video, but I can't emphasize that enough. Efficient finger movement is really important, just period, in your guitar playing, but particularly in this piece with all the movement going on. So watch that carefully, because that's how I would recommend that you fret it out. As far as your picking hand's concerned, I'm always using my thumb on the lower of the 2 notes, and then I don't know what I'm doing. It's combinations of my ring and middle finger. So you can choose what you want to do there. It doesn't really matter which finger you use out of the middle and the ring. Okay, I wouldn't use the index, but for the most part, maybe if you've got notes on the 3rd string, but you can kind of experiment with what feels comfortable for you there. I'm not even sure what I do, but that's okay. There's a little bit of room for movement there with the fingers, but definitely the thumb on the bass notes throughout this piece. Okay, so the B section. Before we do, I don't think I mentioned, but both in the description below this video and the pinned comment, the first comment below this video, there's a link that will take you to a page on my website which has the full tablature for what I'm doing here. So if you want to see the whole thing as a piece, which I would recommend would be good as you work on this tune, then certainly check that out. The B section. So we've just come out of the A section, and in the B we start with a G chord, okay, or an implied G chord if you like. So I'm going to use my second finger. I was about to use my third finger, right? I just want to give you try and show you my thought process here. That's what's most important beyond anything, is how I'm thinking about fretting this out. So I was about to use my third finger. However, I see that the next chord is this D with an F sharp in the bass. And I would use my second finger for that F sharp. So that influences me to think then, okay, I'm going to use that second finger for the G, and then I just move it down. And then, the reason for using the second, third and fourth fingers for this D with F sharp is so my first finger is free to play the C note. So again, the way I fret this is influenced by what I do afterward. And the way I fret this G is also influenced with what I'm doing afterwards. So that's a good little, example of what I'm talking about when you're fretting things out. And then I bring that back. This is G, then a C. We get a little diminished chord. I use my third and fourth fingers. So my second is free to play the D note, and then my first is free to play this A minor. And then I get my E. This is all around an A minor E chord happening here. So you can stay within the position, open position. But here, this is the little part, what's this, 4 bars into the B section here. We have this A minor is the chord being implied here. And I'm going to keep that third finger on that second fretted note because I want it to ring through while the bass notes are being played. Okay, so there's an example of how I might fret something. This time, not so much about it is to do with what I'm doing afterwards, but it's keeping it down. So that A note rings out while I play these notes in the bass. Okay, so that was. Fretted it differently that time. Okay, so there's one way that you could do it as well. So sometimes you find that you go to fret it one way when you're playing and you end up doing it a different way. The worst thing, the bad thing to do there would be to stop. So I could do it like that, or I could do it like I showed you initially. So that's an example of where there's more than one way that you can fret that out in a nice efficient manner. And then from there we got a repetition of sorts. We got this D chord, and then this is similar to what was happening before, okay, up until, and this is now getting into the 6th bar, and we change to this A to D. Okay, so let me just briefly talk you through that part. So it started on the D. The first part is same movement that was happening before, but it's here that we come up to this A with a C sharp. So I'm using my first, third and fourth fingers, and then my third finger's already on the second string, so I'm going to keep it there for the D, and then I'm going to keep it there for this. This is an F sharp with an A sharp in the bass, and then a B minor. So notice for that little section there, the A, the A with the C sharp, then the D. My third finger is on the second string throughout here, even here with the A7, and then we go to an F sharp and a B7. So keeping the finger on the string rather than use different fingers for each time you play a note on that string in that passage is going to equal efficiency in your fingering. You could fret it differently and still get it to sound smooth, but it's harder work, so we want to make it nice and effortless. It will feel effortless. That's the thing with efficient fingering. It's not just to get a nice smooth sound. Yes, that will certainly be the result of nice efficient fingering and finger choices and so forth, but it's also just feels nice to play, and that's something you as the player will appreciate. So yeah, so we had that little piece there. And to the B7. And then we get a little bass part here. And the way I fret that is I play first and second fingers because they're already in position to do that. and then I move position, get my first finger over the 4th, and my pinky over the 6th. You could sort of just use your second finger like that, but I prefer, because see here, you got an extra shift in position. You're going to shift position once, twice. If I do it like this, I just shift once, which is right there. So these are the things, again, that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking, what fingers will I use for this passage? I'm thinking, okay, well, I could do it like that, but if I do it like this, I eliminate one position shift. That decides it for me, anyway. That gets us to this part where I'm using my 2nd, 3rd and 4th fingers to play this chord up here, which leads us to an E. So it's like it's still part of the B7. That's all B7, that bar. So that's a B, still part of the B7 chord being implied there. And then we get down to this part. Now here I use my 1st and pinky, and then my 2nd finger, because it's free and it's in the vicinity to get this D type chord to the A with the C sharp. My 3rd finger, so my 2nd is free to do, no, actually there, let me just go there again. We've got this A with the C sharp. I use my 3rd finger here, I think, no, my 2nd finger, because I want to use my 1st finger for this chord, so my 2nd is free to get this C chord to the G. Okay, so I'll just do that slowly again. We've got this E, these chords again are being implied, E to a D, and then I'm getting to my A with the C sharp, and then I'm using my 2nd finger there. I could use my 3rd, but more importantly it's what I do next, which is my 1st finger playing the F sharp, and then my 2nd finger is right there to grab this C implied chord, and then look how neatly I can get to that G. G7, a little bit of a stretch there, but I can kind of leave the chord there if I need, and this gets to the C, and then 1st and pinky's the best choice for this stretch here over 2nd and 5th fret, and then now here I use my 3rd finger, because what happens next is I get these 2nd fretted notes in the same fret, of course, because I'm in the 2nd fret here. If I use my 1st finger there, I've got to break that note to then grab that note and then my 1st finger there. That's not going to sound as good when you can kind of keep that 3rd finger on and play then the next chord, which is an F sharp implied chord, going to a B. So that little passage is going okay, I didn't do it that time. So sometimes, just because it does happen, I use an incorrect finger. So I'm not going to stop, I'm just going to work my way around that. But what I meant to do there, what do we got? Where am I? From this part. So the D, C, G, C, here. So I want to use my 3rd, so 1st and 2nd are free, and then we get this B. Get a little bass run. Okay, so that was 1st and pinky, and then keep my 1st there because I'm going to need it here, and then my pinky. Then this part's a little bit of movement here at the end of the tune. It's an A minor chord, so you could form that full A minor shape. And then I use my 2nd and 3rd fingers, so my 1st is free to grab the 2nd fretted note. So I'm thinking beat by beat. 1st beat of the bar, 2nd beat of the bar. So I want to try and stay in position for each beat. You know, I've got a shift in position here, but I stay here, and then my 3rd finger comes around, shift in position, and then, sorry, that's a C. Okay, so we've got A minor, this is a D with an F sharp, this is our G, shift in position, and then our C, and then this is F sharp, my pinky plays the C sharp, and I move it up to the 6th fret, then my 1st finger is free to play the F sharp, and then we're ending on the E. Okay, so right at the end there, the F sharp, and then my 3rd finger, I move it down, 1st finger, then I move the 1st finger down, then I use my pinky here, 1st, pinky first, and then it stays there with the low E. Okay, so I know it seems like a lot, and there is a bit going on there, but the things I want you to keep in mind when you're making your finger choices, and maybe you make some different choices to what I have done here. I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, and if you do anything different, it's wrong, but there's certainly inefficient ways to do it, and just ways that make it more work for you. And ways that, you could have someone play this, and while there's a lot of position shifts going on as it is, you could have someone making a whole lot more position shifts than is necessary. It teaches you to play efficiently, and as I was about to say before, it's about thinking about what's coming up next will influence the way that you fret something, and can you stay in the same position? Is that position shift necessary? Is there a way that you could eliminate a position shift, albeit there being many in the piece as it is? That B section that we just did, I'll just play through it once more and just talk through it so you can see it again. It starts on this G into a D, C, and then we've got like a diminished, and this is A minor territory to E, back to A minor, a little bass run, D to the G, C, diminish, A with a C sharp in the bass to D, B minor, and it gets to an F, and this is a little Bourree, and a little shift in key here. Remember I said the B section has little shifts in key. Well, this whole part I just played there for you more or less was in G, but then we got to this A, which went to a D, which goes to an F sharp to a B minor, A, F sharp, and B. Now that's using a concept called secondary dominance. I'll link to a video on secondary dominance I've got on the channel. It's a very cool concept that's happening throughout this piece. It's going to be too much to cover in this video, but check out that concept of secondary dominance. There's a lot of that going on, and they're could be considered little mini shifts in key is what a secondary dominant basically is, or can be thought of. Okay, so that's up to the B7, and more secondary dominance here. It's like a E, D to A to D, C to G, G to C, this is like diminished, and then B, so a chain of secondary dominance happening there. So, and then this is the A minor to D with F sharp to G to C with an E in the bass, F sharp, and then we've got our little ending there all around pretty much E minor B7 type territory there. It's a lot to sort of play and talk at the same time, but that is Bourree In E Minor. It's great to play these classical pieces. I'm certainly not a classical guitar player. I will never claim to be one. I don't play one on the internet. I don't play one in real life, but they're nice pieces to play, and you can fool people, but it's not even about that. It's just beautiful music. You don't have to be a classical guitar player to be able to play these pieces, and that's one piece that's really nice to play and have in your repertoire. So check it out. It's worth your investment of time into learning Bourree In E Minor. I highly recommend it. If you like this video, then you will love this ebook audio I've created for you called How to Learn Songs on Guitar the Right Way and Improve Your Playing at the Same Time. In this ebook, you'll learn in great detail my method for learning any song on guitar. Most people approach learning songs in a very ad hoc way with no real strategy in place. This almost always leads to frustration, and inevitably most people quit before getting the song down. In this ebook, you'll learn the 3 levels to getting any song down on guitar. One of these levels is seldom done, yet is so important in being able to play a song all the way through from start to finish. You'll also learn the top 2 common mistakes most people make when learning songs and how to avoid these. In addition, I show you how to get songs down without having a guitar in your hands, allowing you to practice at times you might otherwise have not considered possible. So click the link in the description below this video and download your free copy of How to Learn Songs on Guitar the Right Way and Improve Your Playing at the Same Time. You'll have it in your inbox within minutes. Let me know in the comment section what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. Let me know how you go with this piece, Bourree In E Minor. Maybe you've learnt it before or have learnt part of it. Let me know if you've got any suggestions for the fingering, because as I said, it's not necessarily just the only way that you could fret the piece out. There's lots of nuances that could occur. If you like this video, then hit that like button, and of course don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you do, hit that notification bell button so YouTube can tell you when I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.